Shove it, squad. Over the years that I have been a wrestling fan, one of the worst parts of being a fan is dealing with the deaths in this industry. So many wrestlers have been taken from us at such young ages. Fortunately, wrestling has cleaned up its act, but the wrestlers from yesteryear sure endured hardships. They had to cope with insane work schedules, pain pills being readily available, getting their heads smashed in before anyone knew anything about CTE, steroid abuse, and a general lack of help when it came to medical bills. It got to a point where it felt like well-known wrestlers were dying monthly. We've lost so many. But there are actually some who are still alive and kicking despite going through those hardships, and for some, I was genuinely surprised to find out that they were still alive. Some of these guys are struggling financially and have serious health conditions, so if you want to try and help them out, most of them have GoFundMes. Here are the Hawks' top 10 wrestlers that I was surprised are still alive. And before you touch that subscribe button, make sure you're touching wood first. Perry Saturn. Perry Saturn was a very technical wrestler who, during the 90s and the 2000s, wrestled for all the major companies. But he is still probably best associated with the hardcore ECW promotion. He always had this look on his face that he wasn't quite all there. Whilst he was in ECW, he didn't wrestle the hardcore style, instead having some insane technical bouts which weren't without their share of Saturn being dropped on his head. He survived 2 gunshots after stopping some men from preying on a chick. Saturn was a hero. After his wrestling career ended, he faded and faded and faded to the point where people thought, hang on a minute, where's Perry Saturn gone? There was a general concern that he was dead. Saturn did eventually re-emerge after years missing. He had been homeless and a drug addict. He now had a Mike Tyson-like facial tattoo, and I can't imagine the type of stuff he went through. Now 57 years old, he's penniless and suffering from a brain injury. But he is off the drugs and he does have a roof over his head. While Saturn is now doing better than some of the guys on this list, what he went through is worse than most of them. He was a drug addict, shot and homeless for years. So yeah, it's surprising he's doing well now. Kinda puts your own life into perspective. Calm down little bro, things aren't that bad. Marty Janetti. In the early 90s, Marty had a promising career ahead of him. He was tagging with Shawn Michaels as the Rockers, one of the most popular tag teams of the era. But the team split up and Shawn Michaels went on to superstardom whilst Marty was fired from the WWF. Marty liked to party, and that is an understatement. He was out of control and really loved his Charlie. After his run with the WWF ended, he was unable to stay in any company for long, which is a damn shame because Marty was an extremely promising wrestler in his younger years. Janetti is also known to lie about a lot of crazy stuff. He used to go on drug-fueled social media rants where he would confess to murders. The drugs and the partying weren't the only causes of Marty's downfall. An ankle injury he suffered in the 90s caused Marty to struggle in the ring where he used to be so reliable. As Marty's career was failing, partying became his main focus. His ankle is still terrible to this day, and this year Marty revealed that he will need to have his leg amputated. Rikishi. I'm told lots of people thought that this man was dead. He's not. This iconic member of the Inouye family was an entertaining wrestler throughout the 90s and the 2000s. Rikishi was a victim of a drive-by shooting when he was just 17 and he still carries a large scar on his abdomen today. Reportedly, he died for a few minutes before being revived. Rikishi is a very large man, weighing in at over 400 pounds. It's said that each ass cheek weighed 100 pounds separately. Large wrestlers have usually not had much longevity in life. Most died young due to the stress on their bodies. Rikishi's weight problems even led him to leaving the WWE in 2004. On top of the drive-by and his weight problems, Rikishi actually did 1 or 2 crazy dives in his career, which just shouldn't have been possible for a man of his size. But this is why he is a legend. Raven. This list is quite heavy on wrestlers who use the hardcore style, and Raven fits right in with them lot. Raven spent lots of time in ECW, which was known for its lenient attitude towards drugs. Even the ECW manager Paul Heyman knew about Raven's needle usage. Raven's drug problems were so well publicised that they were occasionally used for wrestling storylines. Something else that he got in ECW was shots to the head with weapons on a nightly basis. Raven says he's feeling no ill effects from this. Raven is somebody who had an excellent mind for the business, delivered excellent promos, created great stories, but that was all largely overshadowed by his reputation of being a bit of a car crash. 60-year-old Raven last wrestled a match in March. There were lots of concerns about Raven's health recently, but he has refuted them and claimed that he's fine. His body is just pretty beaten up from the years of wrestling. The main reason for his inclusion is that he did look seriously ill in his recent appearances, and it seemed that he could be the next one morning. Hopefully not. The Sandman. This guy looked rough in the early 90s, so it's a real surprise that he's still about today. 61-year-old Sandman started his career in 1989 and came to fame through the hardcore wrestling promotion ECW. This guy was one of the most loved wrestlers in the promotion thanks to the atmosphere when he made an entrance. Sandman was a heavy smoker and a heavy drinker. He would split his head open before every match by bashing a beer can into it. This is clearly a man who isn't afraid of anything. Sandman had serious drug addictions. He even died one night from injecting Bane, but he was revived and even wrestled a match that same night. Then he went straight back to doing it. You know that you're insane when Raven is the man trying to talk you out of doing it. On top of his many addictions, the Sandman wrestled a pretty high risk style. He wasn't afraid to hit dives and hurricanranas. The only saving grace for the Sandman is that once ECW closed down, he couldn't remain employed anywhere long enough for his body to fully break down. Jake Roberts. Jake the Snake might be surprising for some of you that he's alive, but in the last few years his recovery has been well publicised and this might not be so surprising anymore. Jake Roberts can thank his recovery down to DDP Yoga. This is a yoga program created by another former wrestler, Diamond Dallas Page, which has helped multiple wrestlers get back into decent shape. When he was younger, the Snake had his voice box damaged by an Olympian and he was forced to talk strangely for the rest of his life. Throughout his career, Roberts battled with drug and alcohol addiction. He went through 3 separate marriage breakups due to his addictions. He even had to battle cancer. Roberts was in such bad shape that he basically made DDP Yoga famous as he was the first major recipient of that help. None of the rehabs worked for him, but DDP Yoga did work. Now 69 years old, Roberts is signed to All Elite Wrestling in a managerial capacity. Ric Flair. Flair is one of the most famous names in wrestling of all time. Considering his career started in 1972 and it only ended 2 years ago, he truly has had one of the longest wrestling careers. During the 70s, Ric Flair survived a plane crash which broke his back. He was lucky to survive that one. Whilst Flair was incredible in the ring and is a household name, by the year 2010 fans were sort of tired of seeing him. As a kid at the time, I thought that he was 70 years old back then. He had slowed down a lot at this point, but he was still extremely entertaining. The most concerning thing for me was the colour his skin would turn, a dark red colour whenever he wrestled. It was scary to see this happen because it's not something which should be happening to a human being. Flair put everything into his promos and they were extremely entertaining, but once again, the shade he would turn made you worry for his health. In 2011, Flair wrestled what everybody believed would be his final match against Sting. Fortunately for Flair, he has not been a massive steroid user and he's wrestled a pretty safe style for his career. The Nature Boy was not playing a character, he was the real deal and he was as crazy as he looked. Imagine picking up almost 150 speeding tickets in your lifetime. In 2017, he had to have part of his bowel removed, which caused Flair to have a kidney failure and be placed on dialysis. In 2022, Flair came out of retirement to wrestle one final match. Nobody really wanted this, and the main concern for Flair was his health. Somehow, this final match went 26 minutes, and Flair suffered a heart attack during the actual match, but he survived, and he's still with us today at the grand old age of 75. I think it's a miracle that this man is still alive today. Mick Foley. Mick Foley is one of the most famous names from the 90s wrestling. He wrestled as Cactus Jack, Dude Love and Mankind. Now 59 years old and retired from in-ring competition, we're all glad Mick is still with us. He actually pushed to wrestle one final match on his 60th birthday, but several doctors warned him not to as Foley is suffering from much dizziness. He can also barely walk anymore. Foley became a household name during the Attitude Era for his crazy Hell in a Cell and hardcore matches. Some of the falls that Foley has taken have never been replicated to this day, making him stand the test of time as a true legend. But it was these crazy matches which have led to Foley being in such poor health today. He came so close to death multiple times and even had half his ear ripped out and 2 front teeth knocked out. Foley was closing in on the 400-pound mark, but thankfully he's now losing weight through healthy eating. Whilst Foley didn't have the drink and drug problems like most of the people on this list, his falls were crazier than anybody else on this list and it's a miracle he's still with us today. Jeff Hardy. Fortunately, both Hardy boys are still with us, and Matt isn't as mobile as he used to be, but Jeff has taken way more insane risks over the course of his career. And if he wasn't such an insane stuntman, he probably would have died. 47-year-old Jeff Hardy made his WWF debut in 1994 at the age of 16. He was partially responsible for reviving tag team wrestling and also familiarising the audience with a high-risk style. Be that dives out the ring, flips out the ring, crazy dives off the top, his swanton bomb finisher, which people often try to steal, and most importantly his ladder and cage dives. It was these dives that made him a household name, but with that reward comes a very high risk. His body is destroyed now from all his years of crazy stunts. Talking of stunts, he also loves to do dirt biking where he jumps off massive ramps. One small error and you're dead. His risk taking isn't the only reason that it's surprising he's still with us. It's well publicised that Jeff Hardy has had drink and drug problems over the course of his career. It's led to Hardy being fired on more than one occasion and he's been arrested a lot too. He's even had 3 DUIs in the space of 10 years. Fortunately for road users, Jeff is banned from driving for 10 years. Jeff Hardy told us last month that he is now cleaning up his act and he's quit the drugs and drink. Only time will tell. Hardy is currently signed to TNA Wrestling, which is the 3rd biggest company in the States. For me, Jeff finishes above Foley because Foley's crazy antics only lasted a few years, but Jeff has been doing daredevil stuff his entire life. Jeff, you're a crazy bastard and we love you for it. Abdullah The Butcher. Even I was surprised that this guy is still alive, but he's still kicking it at the age of 83. This makes him the oldest wrestler on this list. I mean, just the fact that he's 83 means he's managed to live longer than a lot of people who lead boring normal lives. Just taking a quick glance at his forehead tells you this man has not led an easy life. The scars on his forehead are so deep that you could put gambling chips in them. I'm not actually trying to be insulting here, it's a fact. It's even crazier when you realise this man is somewhere between 300 and 400 pounds and has hepatitis. Hall of Famer Abdullah was a hardcore wrestler who's probably taken more bumps to the head than I've taken naps in my life. His weapon of choice was a fork, and he's credited with popularising hardcore wrestling. He actually ended up in hospital in July of this year with intestine issues and he's struggling financially. It's hard to comprehend that a man who's been through all of what he has is still alive and kicking. And that's the list, don't be pissed. Was there anyone we missed? Did anyone on this surprise you that they're still with us? Give me a like, comment and share to show that you care, and if you don't dare, I'll piss on your hair.